Hello and welcome to PiTV News, our weekly roundup of news stories at UCL and beyond. Here are the stories of this week. This November, UCL teaching staff have been taking part in strikes that have been organised by the UCU, which is the University and Colleges Staff Union in the UK. In fact, these strikes that gave you that extra morning laying had the biggest turnout of strike action in the history of higher education in the UK. Over 70,000 staff took strike action from 90% of universities in the UK. Strike action was taken over 3 days, where our own professors took to the picket lines to express their resentment of temporary teaching contracts, an unstable pension scheme, and extreme workloads. Strike action has been taken by UCL staff members for years now, to be listened to about these serious issues that affect their ability to provide us with excellent teaching. Our own PiTV News team took to the picket lines this week to capture the strike action and hear from our own teaching staff about their decision to support this year's strikes.
Okay, so the main purpose of the strike at the moment is really to address a number of different issues that we've been trying to come to some agreement on now for a number of years. So there's issues to do with our pension, for example. Most of us have had our pension reduced by about 35% due to a perceived deficit in the system, which has now completely disappeared. So we feel like that's been very unfair. So that's, a huge amount of money for later in all of our lives. We were just saying that it's basically like the equivalent of working the last 5 years for free, effectively, if this money is taken out of our salaries, because your pension is like a deferred payment for what we do at the university. The other thing is to do with pay, our pay not keeping in line with inflation, so that year on year we're effectively making less and less money. There's a lot of issues to do with new kinds of contracts that are basically like very precarious, some just hourly contracts. More and more people are employed through precarious contracts at the university, so that although we are full-time academics, increasingly there's less and less full-time people like ourselves, and much more people with lots of different smaller little contractual things, which in effect, when you add it up, becomes very, very difficult to manage, and it means that people have to move around a lot. It's much, much more precarious than it used to be. And the other thing is to do with basic imbalances and inequalities, where women are still paid much less than men, for example. People of colour are paid much less than white academics across the UK sector. So there's a lot of real inequalities in the system that we're trying to address kind of on multiple levels through the strike.
Okay, thank you. So this time it's a national strike that's happening all over the country.
Correct.
So what do you think is the possible impact and the effect that will actually these strikes give to the current situation?
Well, I think it's really positive, because the previous strikes have all been balloted locally. So some universities would be on strike and others not, but this is really the first time we've had all of the whole of the UK university sector on strike at the same time. So we're going to have a rally and a demonstration down at King's Cross later this afternoon, and that's the first time we're going to have a really full-blown national kind of gathering in London. So it's actually really exciting, because I think that will hopefully communicate to the government, the university vice-chancellors, people that look after the pensions in the UK, that we're really serious about addressing these issues.
Okay, so the last question would be, I know lots of UCL students are passing by this strike picket, and what do you want the students to actually discuss about this strike, or maybe at least get interested about this strike? How do you want them to get involved or get interested in this action?
Well, we've had really great support from the students, actually, and the students' union here had a vote at UCL about whether they choose to support the strike or not, and they came out overwhelmingly in support of the strike. Can't remember the exact number, but it was 75-80%, something like that. practice here at the Bartlett, strike happened to happen on a day that they were having their final exhibition, so it was a really big deal. And they covered up all of the work that they were exhibiting for the duration of the strike that was going on. So that was an amazing kind of act of solidarity from the students, respecting the strike. That, I mean, we're striking for everybody, staff and students really, because we're all in the same environment. I mean, we have a lot of students from the Far East and Asian backgrounds is maybe not so familiar with striking and the protocols of a strike, but I think it's becoming kind of increasingly known, I think, like what happens when a strike, and we try and encourage students not to go into the building on the days of the strike, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but that's fine, we're not going to force anybody to do anything they don't want to do.
So we're striking on a couple of different disputes. One is about pay and conditions broadly, so pay obviously, but also things like workload, equality of pay and distribution of workload, and the other is pensions, which sounds kind of technical and boring, but actually makes a huge difference to how possible it is for people to make a career in academia. So the idea of career in academia is there's a lot of precarity and instability early on in the career, and the pension provides some kind of stability at the other end of the career. And we've seen a lot of degradation of the pension conditions to the point where it's actually really now uncertain for a lot of people whether it's a career that makes sense for them, and that's very sad. So two disputes that we're taking action on. I guess the purpose of this action is to try and show that we really are kind of at a breaking point, and we don't think that things can keep going as they are. Really need employers to start thinking a bit more critically about how they make change. This isn't the first strike we've done. We've done this at various points over the last few years, and it's almost got into a bit of a routine now. The employers say, "Oh yes, it's very difficult, but we're going." So we're now looking for something different, and we're looking for something different, especially from UCL. This is a large university. We would expect to see some leadership publicly about the way forward. A couple of things. One is that the strike action has delivered important protections for us in the past. So the reason we actually still have what we call partly a defined benefit pension scheme to fight about is because we took very significant strike action in the past to protect that. If we hadn't taken that strike action, that would already be gone. The other thing that I think is worth thinking about for this year's strike action is that this is a genuinely national strike action. So in the past couple of rounds, we've done balloting on a disaggregated basis. So only if your university makes it over the participation threshold can people at your university strike. What we've done now is an aggregated ballot. So we've got across the participation threshold, got very strong support for strike action across the sector, and that means all universities can come out. So right now we are kind of picketing, and in a little while we're going to go across, and there's going to be a very significant demonstration and rally, including lecturers and academic staff, librarians and so on, coming from all different parts of the UK. So this is a genuinely national strike, and we're hoping that that will finally move things a bit. So, I mean, the reason we pick it outside the building is to be visible and to show that there is strike action taking place, so that if colleagues are forfeiting pay, that at least has some effect. We are interested in talking to students because we want to explain to students why we're taking the action. We definitely don't enjoy not teaching and disrupting the progress of the different programs. So we want to have that interaction with students and explain the position. And we want students who feel kind of unsatisfied to take that question of why is this happening and direct it at the university management. So it really should not come as a surprise that we're on strike against university management. It's been very clear that this is coming for a long time.
This year, UCL's Christmas tree lighting up ceremony took place on November 28th at the main campus in front of a huge audience. The Christmas lighting ceremony on Regent Street, which has been staged annually since 1954, is a pleasant and invigorating event for London residents to anticipate throughout the freezing and huge black winter notice. On a packed street, you can always find people dressing up properly, taking Christmassy photos with a broad grin on their faces. The lighting ceremony at UCL is another event that is quite thrilling to await. Following the announcement that all students, lecturers, staff, and guests are welcoming to witness the yearly occurrence together while enjoying seasonal snacks and drinks, the news traveled around the school community like wildfire. In the end, the provost and the students lit the Christmas tree jointly, and the gathered crowds in the court clapped and yelled as they filmed the impressive and heartwarming occasion by their folks. After the lighting ceremony, not only in the main court, but also the whole campus was filled with a celebratory spirit, bringing merriment and consolation to all those rushing about the campus.